Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Dr. Cheon in the Lost Talisman, a Korean supernatural thriller from 2023 that stars Gang Dong-won and Esom. Now the following plot synopsis was taken from the website iforfilm.uk. They have some good reviews of Asian movies. What do you do if you've been raised in a long-esteemed tradition of shamanism, but, having watched your beloved grandfather perish in the line of work, you don't want anyone to know? Well, become a fake shaman, of course. Many of the skills required are the same. You'll need to be well-versed in magical lore, observant about the environment surrounding you, and good at figuring out what's going on inside other people's heads. Dr. Cheon, played by Gang Dong-won, even has a psychology degree, and he justifies his lucrative scams, carried out with the help of his technician buddy, by noting that he is setting people's minds at ease and resolving tensions within families. But he's about to encounter a client, played by Esom, whose situation necessitates rather more drastic action. Now I was wondering, there's this talisman that's mentioned in the title of the film, and the film describes the talisman at the very beginning with a description. It says, Sogyong is a weaponized talisman that seals vile spirits with Buddhist sutras and patterns. So basically the plot of the movie is our protagonist who has to fight a villain who uses magic for evil deeds, and this talisman's kind of like the key to doing that. Now there's a lot of potential for a story like this, and this film does have some good moments, but I'd say it's unfortunate because Dr. Cheon in the Lost Talisman does take a very run-of-the-mill approach to things, as we'll see here. Now, our main protagonist, Cheon, he's likable enough. Some of this is due to Gang Dong-won's performance. I've always preferred him as like the bad guy in movies, but he does have a softness to his demeanor that fits well with protagonist roles. Now, very early on, his character performs one of his fake shaman routines, and we see this. It's a fairly elaborate scheme. He uses psychology to manipulate his clients, take money from them, and even his client's skeptical daughter becomes convinced by his methods, and the whole thing is fake. But the film sets this guy up as like a charlatan with a heart of gold, or something like that. And it's pretty predictable where the film is going to go from there, right? Again, this premise does have potential, but the execution it's just uninspired, and it results in a story that's rather dull. In the cliche of all cliches, for example, our protagonist has a past that haunts him. You know what I mean? They could have just had him be a character who's just strong, well-established, and he discovers something new. You know what I mean? Instead of having this thing in the past that's constantly haunting him. And we know the conflict is eventually going to tap into that, like, movies like this typically do. So early on where the whole plot is going. There are a few basic investigation elements that we've seen a million times before. I think this movie would have been better if they got a little wild with the plot, a little wild with the characters. Give me something unique. Instead it feels like a movie that was used like a story template, like a wizardry story template, and they just added minimal effort to that template. Like if artificial intelligence ever starts writing scripts for spellcasting movies, this is what I would expect. It's just uninspiring. Now, Esom, as I mentioned, shows up as a female lead. I've always liked this actress. The film does nothing with her character, like in terms of giving her a personality. And Esom is a good actress. She's just like boring to watch in this movie somehow. You know what I mean? Because they gave her nothing to work with. And the same is true for the villain, who's played by Ha Jun-ho, the guy who played Haemosu in the K-drama Jumong, which is like my favorite K-drama of all time. I love Haemosu in that. He was great in that show. So I'm always happy to see him in movies. Scriptwriters give him nothing to work with. He's totally generic, no personality at all. So, having fun side characters can add so much to a movie like this. So it's truly unfortunate that the bland, cliche writing really kills any fun or interest during most of the story elements. Now, what about the scenes of spellcasting and wizardry? So all these scenes should be awesome, right? Well, similar to the script, there's nothing that's really that memorable here. You know, it's not even as good as the stuff from Wu Chi, the Korean flick from 2009 that also starred Gang Dong-won. And that movie is it's just more interesting than this in most elements. You know, it was a fun flick, had some oddball moments of like magic that were set in modern day Korea. Kind of like what this film is trying to do. But on the other end of the spectrum, Dr. Cheon and the Lost Talisman has scenes where someone just they swipe a sword or a wand, and their opponent, who's at a different location doing magic stuff, starts to like bleed from the nose, and then you throw some special effects in, and then we're done. You know what I mean? We get a few scenes like that. There are a few fight scenes in this where the bad guys basically enter other people's bodies remotely, and then they control those bodies to attack the good guys. There's one set piece near the midpoint of the movie that was pretty good. Probably my favorite scene in the film. And, you know, the bad guy is limited to the number of times he could possess somebody within that scene. So he takes over someone's body. They attack our protagonist. Our protagonist has to, like, disarm him or, like, stop him from possessing the body. And then the bad guy possesses somebody else. And then they attack them. You know what I mean? So it had the potential of being like a great scene, but it's only good because the filmmakers kind of rushed through it. They rushed through the scene. Instead of building up each of the possessions and having each person come at the protagonist over a longer period of time, it would have created some genuine excitement, you know what I mean, within that scene. But they kind of rushed through it, in my opinion. It's still a pretty good scene, though. The final fight is okay. You know, do you see a theme to this review? You know, you're basically, everything ranges between pretty good and okay, right? Too much emphasis in the finale on regular hand-to-hand fighting and special effects instead of intricate spell casting and magic, which is why it's why we're watching this movie, really. So, like, the supernatural battles are just decent on average. There's a bit of atmosphere in the film. Some scenes have gloomy lighting. But even those scenes aren't really great. There's not a lot of scenes that I would describe as beautiful or vibrant. Even when they apply like an orange or a green hue color scheme to like the lighting and stuff and special effects, it doesn't pop as much as it should. It's a little bit too drab, visually speaking. Now, most of this review is me kind of criticizing this movie, but I do want to make it clear that I could see some people getting some enjoyment out of this. It's not offensively bad. It's just lazy in its execution of a subgenre that should be a breeding place for creativity, you know? Now, this is an unfair comparison. This is not like the crazy Hong Kong sorcery flicks from the 1980s. I know it's unfair to compare, but there's no reason someone can't do a movie like this today. You know what I mean? And that's another reason why The Boxer's Omen from 1983 will never be matched. Never. That is the most purely entertaining and crazy spellcasting movie of all time. You can watch that one instead. But like I said, they had an opportunity here to do something really unique and fun. They didn't really do that. So I do not officially recommend Dr. Cheon and the Lost Talisman. But if you want to give it a shot, there's worse stuff out there. So if you want to give it a shot, it's currently available streaming on YouTube. And as always, I'll see you next time.